Welcome to this video series about improvising by Sietze de Vries. You can support this video series by donating the amount of your choice to Sietze de Vries' Patreon account, which can be found by searching Sietze de Vries Patreon or by finding the link in the description below the video. Enjoy the video.
So, as you can see, a different setup today. I'm actually sitting at my Hauptwerk organ, and since I got a lot of questions about it, what my thoughts are about Hauptwerk, I thought, well, let's share my thoughts with you and make it into a topic for this improvisation series. And, well, the first thing you notice, this instrument is not in my church. That's actually one door away. And there is a good reason for it. Well, actually several good reasons. A main reason would be that this is a small room that I can heat in wintertime, so it's actually very comfortable to practice here. But the main reason is that this instrument wouldn't sound that well in the church, actually. And that's something you never think about probably, but Hauptwerk of course uses speakers, and the results are really staggering. I think it's a beautiful system and I enjoy practicing here. But the reason that it sounds so good is that I put it in a small room. I made the room as dead as possible. So behind me, behind the bookshelves here, I have a lot of foam-like material on the wall to make sure that the acoustics are really dead. Like in a studio, you would see the same. And then my speakers, I have two big speakers on one end of the room and small rear speakers behind me. And I also use the headphones a lot, by the way. And then you have the optimum result, I think. If you put speakers like I have here in my church, they would sound awful, because in the church I would do the complete opposite. I would actually like to have a lot of reverb going on, so I have hard material in my church, so that the sound bounces back from the walls and the ceiling. And this reflection actually makes that an organ, a piano, a harpsichord really sounds well in the space. And an organ is actually specifically designed to be in a building. The building is part of the instrument, so to speak. And of course with Hauptwerk you want to have the optimum result from the speakers. So that's one of the reasons that I don't like the idea to have Hauptwerk in public spaces. And I think a lot of the sample makers support that idea. I know, for example, from some of the sample makers that they state actually online that they say something like, don't put these instruments in public rooms. They are made for your private use. And then this is a wonderful system, because it's so wonderful to get the sound of these famous organs in your living room, and that you can enjoy making all those beautiful sound combinations. I currently use my own organ, the Green Monster in the Martinikerk Groningen, a very good sample set, and I can really look for some stop combinations. It really has the same result as it has in the room itself. So it's wonderful to have this, especially when you are playing organs from a different country that you probably normally don't have access to. It's wonderful that you have this opportunity at home. So one of the reasons that I don't play Hauptwerk in public spaces is that it's really meant for private use and it doesn't sound too well in a big space. I'm sure that a sound engineer would argue with me, you can make it work in a big space, and I think it's possible, but then the amount of amplifiers and speakers and the amount of money it will cost to make it sound good is probably about the same amount of money to have the real thing in your room, so why bother? A more important reason, I think, to not use Hauptwerk in a public space, in a church or another building, and play concerts on it, is actually a more important reason, I think, and that's about the touch you have on an organ. Especially when you play old music, and of course I'm all about playing Bach and music before that. Very important aspect is how do you touch the keys, and it makes a huge difference. On a good organ it really makes sense that you study all the ways you can press a key, you can release a key, you can do it slow, you can do it fast, you can do it with a lot of force, without any force, and everything you do, every little detail makes an impact on the sound. And of course with a keyboard like this, it's on, off. That's the only options you have. So if you play electric pneumatic organ, for example, you have the same thing. So then it's kind of comparable. But if you are really used to playing old instruments and not only organs but also harpsichords, clavichords, then it's a complete different matter. And of course ask any pianist, he would agree that digital piano is never the same thing as the real piano. And maybe the sound can be very good already, but still the touch is never exactly the same. And the touch is actually what makes the difference between an okay sound or really music making. That's the thing you have to learn as an organist, to play all these different instruments. But having said that, I'm really happy that Hauptwerk exists, and you really have some great results. And of course, since we have this computing power that is so enormous nowadays, you can really sample every little detail of every organ, not only every pipe, but also the effect the pipe has in the room. And not even only that, you can even make sure that you hear the organ from close by, from a larger distance, and from the back of the church. And you can all do that with a simple touch on some buttons, and it really works. It's quite remarkable, I think. So I'm a huge fan of Hauptwerk, but really for the right purposes. I love studying on an organ like this. I do it a lot actually, especially just to get to know the score. I practice here all the time. But then, like I said, especially in old music, when I want to refine things, when I really want to make sure that I know exactly what to do with all the different articulation, I use different kinds of touch, then I need to go to the real instrument. And of course for me it's a luxury to have this as a little extra and then to have real instruments in the room next door. So I'm very happy about it, and I'm all in favor of promoting Hauptwerk, but for the right reasons. Well, to show you some music as well, and it's one of the topics I want to do in some of the next videos. I'm actually I'm transcribing a Bach cantata at the moment, which is one of the fun things to do. We of course know all the literature, well, back and forward by now. Everyone plays all the pieces all the time, we have all the recordings. So it makes sense to look for some beautiful pieces of famous composers that are not written for organ and then try to transcribe them for organ. And Bach did it himself, of course, with the concertos, for example. And I always love listening to Bach cantatas, and sometimes I encounter a piece that I think, wow, this would really sound wonderful on an organ. So one of the examples is the cantata Was Gott tut, das ist wohlgetan. And that starts with the opening chorale. The choir just sings the hymn, very straightforward, and the orchestra is making a wonderful arrangement around it. And it's really fun to see how you can make it work on an organ, because if you look at the complete score, there's way too much information. It's really not possible to play all the voices on the organ, and it would cloud the entire music. But if you really make some smart decisions about what to play and what not to play, and even to alter sometimes the music a little bit, you can end up with a very nice organ transcription. So to give you a little example of this Hauptwerk sample set of the Martinikerk Groningen, I will play the beginning of this hymn, Was Gott tut, das ist wohlgetan, to give you an impression of how the Martini organ sounds in Hauptwerk. I'm actually using what I always call the consort registration. So I use a lot of reeds and also some stops with tierces in it. So the tertian from the Hauptwerk and the sesquialtera of the Hauptwerk, of the Oberwerk is in it. Both the trumpet 16 and 8 of the Hauptwerk and Oberwerk are in it. And I'm accompanying everything on the Rückpositiv with the 8-4-3 sound and the schalmei, a very beautiful trumpet-like reed. And it really gives you the impression of a small Baroque orchestra and then the choir entering with the hymn. Well, let's listen to this and then you have some idea of the Hauptwerk organ I have here. And of course I'm happy to promote the sample set of the Martinikerk Groningen because it's really well done, I think. Enjoy!